All right, here we go. Welcome into the show. This is the San Francisco 49ers Report, and coming up, we have some injury news to get to for the Niners going into the NFL playoffs. And could San Francisco be adding a cornerback in free agency who's a two-time Pro Bowler? The Niners working out that cornerback today who they could sign to the roster after Jason Verrett. Brutal news here. Tore his rotator cuff in his shoulder and is out for the year. He suffered that injury last week in practice. First, before we get started, this is why you subscribed to the show earlier today. I was in Houston as Chat Sports was covering the College Football Playoff National Championship. Did a show from the Media Hotel. We drove 4 hours. Some news broke for San Francisco on the injury front, as well as this potential addition to this roster at corner. And now I'm back at my crib in Dallas, and we're bringing you some more content. Also, sign up with Prize Picks, largest independently run daily fantasy sports app in North America. Get a $100 deposit match at prizepicks.com/CLNS. Use the code CLNS. What that means is you put in $100 into your account, you get $100 back. That's $200 to play DFS with. And it's daily fantasy made easy. You pick 2 or more players, you choose more or less on their projected stat lines. I'll put that link down below in the comment section, as well as in the description of this video. And with the NFL playoffs coming up and the NBA in full swing, college basketball is here. It's a great opportunity to hop on board the Prize Picks train. All right, let's get started with some Niners injury news. And San Francisco, with this first round bye going into the playoffs after 17 games, relatively healthy. So that's the good news here for the Niners. And they expect to get defensive lineman Arik Armstead, who's been dealing with this troublesome foot injury for several weeks, back to practice this week. This is huge for this Niners defense. He is an excellent run defender. He's also a really good interior pass rusher for San Francisco. And Arik Armstead, Javon Hargrave form one of the best defensive tackle duos in the NFL. Unfortunately, because Armstead's been injured with this foot injury as well as a knee on top of that, we haven't gotten to see as much as we want to see from Armstead and Hargrave together, but they are game disruptors. And when you go into the NFL playoffs, you're going up against some quality quarterbacks and some quality offenses. And the Niners on the edge already very solid with Chase Young, Nick Bosa. We'll get to Clelin Ferrell's injury here in a bit. But if you can rush the passer and you can muddy up the pocket right in the quarterback's sight line, that's how you can force turnovers. That's how you can really disrupt an opposing offense, and Armstead and Hargrave are able to do that. 5 sacks, 13 quarterback hits this year in 12 games. He had tweeted out a couple of times that talked about it on his podcast that he really wanted to go to his first career Pro Bowl. I think the lack of games hurt him there, but he was on a Pro Bowl track before he got hurt. But only playing 12 games, that really impacted his Pro Bowl candidacy. And with Armstead, he comes alive in the playoffs. This is also something that he talked about. Check out Title League, by the way. That's where Armstead's podcast goes through. And in the last 3 years, 9 playoff games, 7 sacks for Armstead, 11 quarterback hits, as well as 5 tackles for loss. It seems as though he plays his best ball on the biggest of stages, and for San Francisco to get him back for what we hope is going to be a run at another Super Bowl on that quest for 6, this is big news for this Niners defense. He's just a game wrecker on the inside. As for Clelin Ferrell, we'll get to him next here. Knee injury for him. He did say to Larry Krueger, friend of the show, I hop on his podcast and his YouTube channel, The Krug Show, every single Friday, that he didn't expect this to be a long-term injury, but Kyle Shanahan saying today in his news conference that Ferrell expected to be out a couple of weeks, but there is a chance that he's going to come back at some point in the postseason. 3.5 sacks, 13 quarterback hits in 17 games. Those 3.5 sacks, the second best of his career. He has never lived up to the expectations of being that 4th overall pick back in the 2019 draft that I was at in Nashville, actually. Really good time. It's crazy how much time has gone past since then. But while he hasn't lived up to those lofty draft expectations, he was also playing for a really bad organization in the Las Vegas Raiders. I like the signing, and I like the addition of him to this team in the offseason. Good depth at defensive end. He can pop inside, play a little bit of defensive tackle. I'd like to see him come back as a backup edge rusher. Pretty solid against the run this year and a very active, physical player. And when you match a player like that up with Chris Kocurek, how many times have we seen Kocurek, best defensive line coach in the NFL, be able to maximize a player who's kind of been down, out, ruled a bust, and Kocurek is just able to work his magic. I thought he was able to do that a little bit with Clelin Ferrell, who outside of those 3.5 sacks and those 13 quarterback hits, again, made good plays against the run and was active at getting to the quarterback. Next up, running back Christian McCaffrey. He did not play against the Rams in the regular season finale. He did say after suffering a calf injury in Week 17 against the Commanders that if it were a must-win game, if it were a playoff game, that he was going to be able to play. The Niners are going to take the cautious route here. He's not going to practice this week, but is anticipated to return to practice next week ahead of the Niners' first playoff game where they will take on the lowest remaining seed. Safeties Jair Brown, knee injury, and Deshaun Gibson with the quad are also expected to return to practice this week alongside cornerback Ambry Thomas, who has really come on following the Niners' bye week, forming a very good outside cornerback tandem with Charvarius Ward, who's going to his first Pro Bowl. Deommodore Lenoir moved from the outside to the inside. That allowed Thomas to be on the outside, and he's played well. He underwent hand surgery last week, missed that Week 18 game, and he's going to be back to practice as well. The team also plans to open the practice window for safety George Odom. He tore his biceps earlier this year, so he could make a return maybe for the divisional round, maybe for the NFC Championship game, if not for the Super Bowl. Wide receiver Jawan Jennings is now out of concussion protocol. He was in that for a couple of weeks, and I know a couple of people reached out to me, and I saw some people talking in the comments section. Brock Purdy comes out of concussion protocol and is able to play the next week, but Jawan Jennings is in it for a couple of weeks. Look, all concussions are different. Every person deals with head injuries a little bit differently, and when you're dealing with the brain, there are a lot of complexities to that. But either way, I think that the Niners missed Jawan Jennings and his physicality against a physical Ravens team. That was the first game that he missed. He's a good run blocker, very good weapon on some of the money downs, third down, fourth down, and he just makes winning plays. So for the Niners to get him back on the offensive side of the football, that is a big boost. Drake Jackson, Kyle Shanahan saying, doesn't think that he's an option to come back right now. So his second season has kind of ended up being a disaster. Safety Taylor Hawkins suffered a wrist injury late in the game against the Rams, had his first career interception in that game against Los Angeles off the deflection off that Carson Wentz pass. That is going to require surgery. And then offensive lineman John Feliciano, he's day-to-day due to his back injury. Tight end George Kittle did not play against the Rams due to back spasms. That's improving. And then linebacker Dre Greenlaw was also sidelined due to Achilles tendonitis. That's a little bit of an issue. Kyle Shanahan did say we're going to have to be cautious with that because anytime you're dealing with any type of Achilles injury, it can be a little bit worse. Dre Greenlaw, the Niners enforcer, physicality, and him and Fred Warner, they form to be one of the best linebacking duos in the NFL. So again, relatively speaking here, you know, the Niners are a physical football team. Javon Hargrave said that the difference between the Niners and the Eagles practices laid back, relaxed like the Golden State Warriors, whereas the Niners, they're like the Miami Heat. They've also played deep into the season, 3 NFC Championship games over the last 4 years. That's a lot of football. So for the Niners to be this healthy this late into the year helps them get ready for the Super Bowl run. To that Niners potential addition at the cornerback position, Aaron Wilson, NFL Insider, reported today that the Niners worked out veteran cornerback Casey Hayward, a very familiar name to a lot of people. 2-time Pro Bowler in his career. Last played for the Atlanta Falcons the first 6 games of the 2022 regular season. He clearly feels as though he has some gas left in the tank. He clearly feels as though he can still contribute something to a football team. Works out with San Francisco, looking to latch onto that roster for another Super Bowl run. He started and was targeted 27 times last year in those 6 games. He did allow 15 catches. Not an awful season, but it was cut short due to a right shoulder injury that he suffered actually against the Niners in that game that they lost when Jimmy Garoppolo was just not good at all. He actually got intercepted in that game by Isaiah Oliver. Hayward is 34, remain unsigned all throughout this year, and the Niners could look to add him to the practice squad. Kyle Shanahan said, we want to add a corner because we're down a corner after Jason Verrett suffered that season-ending shoulder injury, brings experience, brings a decent level of play, 2-time Pro Bowler, so a nice little resume there for Casey Hayward. I'll be back tomorrow in the Chat Sports studios, right here on the 49ers Report. That's why you subscribe, turn on your notifications. Therefore, when we do push out a video, you will get notified. Going to go live on Thursday, and then obviously videos coming out every single day. And on a day like this, we do a couple of shows for you right here on the Niners Report. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesdays. We'll catch you tomorrow on Wednesday right here on the show, and thanks for watching. Peace.